Okay, let's talk a bit about pasture growth. Now, how do you boost immediate pasture growth but not have it fizzle out on you? Never like that, do we? Well, a unique product invented and made right here in New Zealand aims to do just that. Our expert in fertiliser is the best in the game. Jamie Blenner-Hassett from Balance joins us to look at this. Jamie, PhaSedN, tell us a bit about this. Explain it how it works.
Right. Well, I guess we first started working on PhaSedN around 10 years ago, and essentially the idea for it came from very high worldwide fertiliser prices at the time, and in particular phosphate was starting to get to a point where there were only marginal returns on the investment. So we recognised that some farms had high phosphate reserves that could potentially be affording to mine them, but we also knew that at the same time that they needed to be applying nitrogen and sulphur to make sure that they didn't get any drop in production. So essentially PhaSedN came about as a response to allowing the nitrogen and sulphur to be applied independent of applying phosphate.
Okay, so some invented here. That's fantastic, isn't it? Made in New Zealand, and basically sort of the generation of the idea, just a sort of a process over time.
Yes. So essentially, I guess once we identified that the opportunity was to apply nitrogen and sulphur independent of phosphate, we then needed to figure out ways to do it. So you did have sulphate of ammonia as an option, but the problem with that is that if you applied it before winter, the sulphur is in sulphate form, and the soil can't hold on to it, so it's easily leached. So one of the ways to get around the sulphur leaching problem was to apply fine elemental sulphur, but we were then faced with another problem that has a high fire risk, and it's also subject to segregation with other fertiliser products. So we were really keen to see whether we could incorporate fine elemental inside a granule so that it was then protected, and at the same time get the efficient nitrogen in the form of sustain. However, the problem was that when we looked at those two, we realised that elemental sulphur couldn't easily be mixed with the agrotone inhibitor, which is a really critical part to making sustain work. So we needed to find ways around that. And now I guess that's where the third component, which is the lime, comes into play. So overall, what we get is a unique product that's a combination of sustain, fine elemental sulphur and lime all in one granule, and nothing like this has ever been done before.
So that's what makes it so unique, Jamie. Tell us about the benefits then of using PhaSedN over other products.
Well, I think there's three key parts to the benefit, and obviously the first of them is that you're getting a hit of very efficient nitrogen in the sustain form, which boosts short-term pasture growth, and so you get an immediate response. But the second is that the very fine elemental sulphur has the advantage of being in a form that means that it is both protected from leaching if you're going to get leaching, but at the same time the fineness of it makes the plant available relatively quickly and essentially boosts that pasture growth over a more sustained period. And I guess the third of them, which is the lime component, is that it not only stabilises the product combination, but it also helps counter some of the acidifying effects that you get when you use elemental sulphur. So none of these benefits are unique on their own, but what makes the product really unique is that they're all combined into one package.
Is there any particular time or sort of situation that you should or shouldn't use this product?
Well, one of the key times that we recommend to use it is right from now through into the early winter, and particularly in the warm parts of the country where grass growth will carry on for a while, you're going to keep getting the benefits of it. So whilst the idea of it came from applying nitrogen and sulphur independent of phosphate because of pricing, what we've also realised is that there is a niche for an autumn nitrogen and sulphur product, and there's no other product on the market that can do that. So essentially SOA is an option, but you can't use that because of the risk of leaching. So as far as the time not to use it, there isn't any really no-go areas, but we do recommend using a product with some sulphate S later in the winter and into early spring. So a slightly modified version that we call PhaSedN Quick Start for that time. But for the most part, PhaSedN is designed for pasture. It can be applied at almost any time. and there isn't really any reason why it can't be used for other crops, but you just need to understand whether you need that immediately available sulphate or not.
Radio Live Rural Exchange.